Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to the channel. My name is VirtualNunchucks. I hope you're having a great day. Today what we're going to do is we're going to review Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order by Lucasfilm, EA Star Wars, and Respawn Entertainment. That's right, the people behind Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends got their shot in the Star Wars universe, and we have to talk about it. But the question I had when I started this game, believe it or not, was, does this game live up to the Star Wars name, or should it have been executed in Order 66 along with the rest of EA Star Wars? To be honest with you, I was a little concerned because I heard that EA was releasing another Star Wars game, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, please. Because after the Battlefront 2 debacle, after Battlefront 1 was no campaign and it was just multiplayer only, I was like, please, just no. But then I heard Respawn Entertainment got a hold of this game and was able to make this game. And then I thought, well, okay, Titanfall 2 was good, you know. Apex Legends has got some snappy combat and you know, they got a stellar reputation. So I give them a shot. You know, so I did. I bought it. I know this is late as far as review goes, because normally we try to review games as early as we can, but I'm a consumer, so I get a hold of them when I can purchase them. So I bought this game myself, and I didn't get a review copy. So here we go. Let's talk about, first of all, the graphics of this game. Holy cow. I mean, I know this is a cutscene. I realize that. But this is an in-engine cutscene, and holy cow, this game is, well, gorgeous, okay? It's just gorgeous. The graphics in this game, now don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, okay? There's going to be some clipping with clothing against lightsabers and clothing against different things. You're going to see different things, like the hair is a little wonky, okay? Some of the hair is a little wonky, especially on certain characters, like the Wookiees. The Wookiees are just ugly. All right, the Wookiees are ugly. There's no way around that. They don't look good. When you meet the Wookiees, they're ugly. There's no way around that. But the rest of the game, as far as level design, most of the character models, like Cal and the different, you know, troopers and things and enemies that you meet and the different characters that you meet, they're okay. It's passable. It's not great, but it's passable. Greasy's kind of my favorite design because, honest to the Lord, Greasy is your pilot, by the way, that you meet later. And I think I have a clip of him here somewhere, in this footage. But Greasy is my favorite design. He's a unique character. He's a unique alien. We haven't seen him in Star Wars before. He has 4 arms. He's really cool looking, and you know, and he's animated, and he's different character, and I think they did his model real well. The Inquisitors in this game, the troopers in this game, the overall graphics of this game are impressive. Now, to be fair, I am dealing with a post-patch version of Jedi Fallen Order. I understand that there were graphical problems and people falling through the map and everything on release, but I am happy to report that I had none of that problem with this game. I had no slowdowns, especially after the most recent update. I had no slowdowns. I had no falling through the map, no ridiculous, you know, face missing, stuff like that. Okay, I had none of that. This was absolutely gorgeous, and I can't believe I just fell off there, but I didn't know where I was going. This is the beginning of the game, okay? Give me a break. But the game is gorgeous. And where it really shines for me is, and it should, because this is a lightsaber game, okay? Where it really shines for me, though, is in the lightsaber duels and the combat itself. It's just a gorgeous, amazing looking game. And the sound design, since we're talking about graphics, let's talk about sound design right now. Sound design, oh my goodness, okay. They nailed the sound design. The lightsaber sounds, the sounds of the ships, the sounds of the blasters, the sounds of the troopers when they panic, the sounds of the environments that you're in, from the scrapyard all the way up to the later planets that you visit, the ambient noise and the surrounding. Oh my goodness, it's a gorgeous sounding game, and the music, which I will not play on this channel for copyright problems, but the music just lends to that. They kind of borrowed from John Williams a little bit. They borrow, and the composer obviously wrote his own stuff for the game. But man, the music is just pure Star Wars. Okay, so if you're a Star Wars fan so far, the graphics are good. The sound design is amazing. You will love the sound design. Especially when Ben Burtt came back to do the voice. In case you don't know who Ben Burtt is the original sound designer for Star Wars, and he came back to do the voice of your droid that you carry around, BD-1. Okay, and it's just an amazing sound design all the way around. I didn't have any hiccups with the sound design. I didn't have any delays. Now, again, I heard that was a problem, but again, I have post-patch, so I had no delays. I had no miscues. My experience was pretty spot on. There were a couple of times where things didn't sync up, maybe one or two times, but I think that's because I inadvertently triggered an elevator once and caused a glitch in the game. So I think possibly that was my fault, because I triggered something before I was supposed to. But we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about glitches and things that are wrong with this game in a minute. All right. Okay. But let's also talk about the voice acting, because you can't have great sound design. You can't have, you can have all the greatest music. You can have the greatest sound design. You can have all this stuff. You can have a beautiful game, but if the voice acting doesn't hold up, then you're not sold on the characters. You're not sold on the world that in this case, the galaxy that you're playing in. And I have to say, the voice acting for this is pretty good. The lead guy, Cal Kestis, your character that you play, the Padawan who's been hiding out, was voiced by the gentleman, and I'm sorry that I don't know his name. I know his first name is Cameron, but I can't think of his last name to save my life. But for those of you who watched Gotham, he was the young man, the redheaded guy who played, who eventually becomes the Joker. He's pretty cool in that series too, by the way, in case you missed that. So that's where I know him from, and I have to say that he gave a pretty good performance in this game. He sounds optimistic when he needs to. He sounds scared to death when he and weary of people, which as a Padawan learner who's hiding out from the Empire, I think you should be able to do that. He did a really, really good job selling this character for who he is, and all the voice actors did. Greasy, your pilot that you meet later, again, my favorite animated character as far as graphics and everything, and design. That guy, man, he's comic relief, okay? And he just totally sells his character from every point of view. Greasy is a worrywart. He's a scaredy cat, and he's also very, very picky about his plants. And I'll get into that in a minute. His plants, his ship, and everything about it. When you first meet Greasy, him and Cal get into a fight over BD-1 and the droid and the fabric of his chairs and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's pretty funny. Greasy for me just sold it. Okay, sold the whole thing, because this is a very dark and foreboding game. It's very dark. It's very, very, well, there's just no other way to say it. It's just dark. This is the darkest game I've ever played in the Star Wars universe, and I've played them all. I kid you not. I have played every single Star Wars game that was ever made, including Bounty Hunter on PS2, but we won't get into that. This is a dark game, man. So let's talk about some things. Now, I'm trying to do as little spoilers as possible. Okay, that's why I've kind of been talking about the sound design and the graphics and the voice and the thing. All right, but let's talk about a few things. First of all, dang. Okay. Like I said, this is a very dark game. You're hiding out from the Empire. You have been for about 5 or 6 years on this planet. And, you're trying not to use the Force. You're trying not to do these things. And you're just trying to make a living and live out a life away from the Empire and hopefully not die. And that comes across because as you're playing this game, just the subtle emotions on the face of Cal Kestis, the different the voice acting again sells it because he's weary of everybody. He's scared to death of everybody. He's afraid he's going to get caught every single day of his life. And he is very, very sad because he is a Padawan and his entire life got turned upside down. And like, for example, this scene right here, okay, he comes up on a Jedi fighter. They found that while they're scrapping this ship. And he talks to his friend here, and he says, the guy's like, well, how long has this been? And he's like, what, 5 or 6 years? And he says, 5. It's been here for 5 years. And you just see the sadness and the desperation on his face. He's looking at it thinking about all the things he lost, the things he experienced. And up to this point, we still have no idea what he experienced. But all through this game, you learn about his past, you learn about what he experienced, his training. And it really sells the emotional tie to the character. By the time this game is done, you're going to feel for all of the characters involved in this story, whether it's Cal or Greasy or Sarah, which is your mentor later. She's part of the crew of the ship. And you're going to totally buy at least the emotional connections between the characters. Again, I'm trying not to get into spoilers here, but this is a dark game. I was not expecting some of the different plot twists and the character development that I saw, but that's not to say that this doesn't have hope, because all things in the Star Wars universe, as Jen Erso said in Rogue One, rebellions are built on hope, and Star Wars was built on hope, and so there is a little bit of hope in this game, and it does definitely feel like Star Wars. But since we're talking about Jedi, and see, he gets to use the Force for the first time in 6 years, saving his friend right here. Since we're talking about Jedi and the Force and Star Wars, let's talk about what makes this uniquely Star Wars. First of all, he's a Jedi Padawan, okay? And you get to do some really cool stuff with your guns. With your lightsabers, okay? When you first start out with the game, because he hasn't used the Force in 6 years, he's a little rusty. He only has Force Slow, which is that power. You just saw him slow his friend down so he doesn't die when he hits the deck. You start out with Force Slow, and you start out with your lightsaber. And to be honest with you, all you can basically do at the moment is swing and block. But it sounds cool, and let me tell you, it is it's some amazing combat. So let's talk about the combat for a minute. Combat in this game, again, is just strictly lightsabers, because that is your only single weapon in the entire game. That's all you get is a lightsaber, so you better be good with it. And this is something that concerned me too, because I knew this was going to be a Jedi game. I knew this was going to be lightsaber heavy. And I thought to myself, okay, well, Respawn does guns, and they do wall running, and they do explosions, and can they handle lightsabers? I mean, even don't get me wrong, I liked Force Unleashed 1 lightsaber combat a lot. I liked Force Unleashed 2's combat. I'm going to specify that combat better. And I was concerned that maybe they wouldn't be able to do that justice because, the up until now, the only people that have been able to do it right is Lucasfilm and LucasArts, and unfortunately they're not with us anymore. But I gotta tell you, the combat in this game, oh my goodness. First of all, you got to be good with that lightsaber. This combat system is based upon parries and dodging and well-timed strikes. Because if you don't time your strikes right and you don't time your parry right, you're going to get owned. And you're going to die very, very, very quickly. This game has been called Baby Dark Souls, and for very good reason. It is very brutal on the combat side. If you get overwhelmed and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to die. And when you die in this game, you go back to your last save point and you lose all of your XP, all of your points up to that point. And you have to track back through all the enemies before the enemy that killed you. Once you get to the enemy that killed you, however, the first strike that you land on your character that killed you gives you your force powers back, gives you your experience back, and also regenerates your health immediately afterwards. So it's kind of nice that they did that okay, you made it this far again, here, have an upper hand on this guy because he killed you last time, which is kind of nice. But I gotta tell you, this combat is amazing. It took me forever. This game is brutally hard. It took me forever to master, and I still haven't really. I finished the game and I still thinking to myself, man, I need to go back to lightsaber school or something because, dude, it's so hard because you have to time it right. You have a stamina bar on your blocking. For your block, so they can break your block if you're tired of blocking. They can unleash a devastating combo on you that just takes a quarter of your health bar or a half of your health bar right away. There's unblockable moves that thankfully they give you cues, like if a character's fixing to do an unblockable, they turn red on you. That's awesome. At least you have that split second to get out of the way. But it is so brutally hard, and you gotta be patient because you are gonna die. You are gonna die a lot. I don't care if you think you're awesome with these kind of games. If you're a Dark Souls veteran, just be patient and realize that you're gonna die quite a lot. And roll with it because I can guarantee you the payoff is a whole lot better when you do. But the combat is awesome. They've nailed the different variety of characters because you know how some games you get copy and paste enemies. Not so much here. For each individual planet has its own ecosystem and its own creatures to fight. Every stormtrooper or every variant of a stormtrooper that you run across are different. You have your traditional stormtroopers that are really bad shots, and you can pretty much deflect a beam right into their face and kill them in one deflection. You have scout troopers or melee troopers. I can't even talk. The guys that hit you with sticks, okay? And you've got dark troopers, variations of those. You have flamethrower troopers. There's just a whole bunch of troopers in general, okay, that you will run into, and one or two of them that I never saw until late game, and died a few times to them because I wasn't used to them. I didn't know what they did, and just they wiped me out. But not only do they have varying troopers along with the Inquisitors that you run into, like this lady right here, Second sister. Oh my God, second sister. All right. Anyway, but but they have their own ecosystems for each planet, where each planet has its own alien life forms and creatures that want to kill you, and so you could go to Kashyyyk and run into tree spiders, I guess is what you call them. I don't know, some big, huge spider that wants to eat you. And you run into slugs. You run into all these different things. Bugs that glow in the dark and explode when they sting you, and it's crazy. You go to another planet, and you might have a giant, huge bullfrog-like creature that just is a carnivore, and he grabs you with his tongue, he bites you, he jumps on top of you. Or you have little crab-like things on another planet that spew venom at you, that poison you. And when they die, even when you slice them, unless you slice them directly in half, when they die, they excrete poisonous stuff around them, so you have to be careful about killing them. There's just all kinds of stuff in this game that are out to kill you, and there's so many different ones that it does lend to a lot of variety, a lot of having to think about what you're doing, how you're going to approach things, and how you're going to fight them. Because, again, you only have the Force and you have your lightsaber. So you have to be good with the lightsaber and you have to use the Force. Speaking of the Force, you are given, through various stages, different powers, because Cal is having to reconnect himself with the Force. And they do a very good job of tying it to the story of how he remembers certain things. There are times that I wish that they would have given it to you just a little bit earlier, but they give you good story reasons why he needs it, when he needs it, and they give you flashbacks to his training and more character development and more understanding of the characters and stuff like that. There's Greasy right there. There's Greasy. Anyway, and then there's Sarah, of course, your mentor in the game, and she's pretty cool too. But Greasy's just funny, and I like funny. That's part of the problem. But anyhow, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Force. Okay, so you start out with Force slow. Basically, what that does is it slows down your enemies to the point where you can move a little bit faster than they can, which helps out, especially if you have people swinging staffs or sticks or stun batons or whatever at you. You can slow them down, and you can maybe get a couple of hits at them real quick before they speed back up to normal, and it does help. But eventually, you are given things like Force pull and Force push, and you can upgrade each individual power on the skill tree as you progress with your skill points. At one point in time, if you, for example, if you upgrade your pull enough, you can Force pull a guy towards you and then stab him with your lightsaber. And it reminded me a little bit, I kid you not, of Darth Vader and all the dark side powers that you would do. Because I've never seen a Jedi pull a guy and then just stab him in the chest. I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of dark for you, Cal. But then again, like I said, it's a dark game. It's just dark. There's light moments here and there. There's hope woven all throughout this game, but it's dark. So, and then at some point you can upgrade your push to the point where you're pushing like 6 guys at once, and I'm not talking about just barely touching them. You push them, you can throw them over a ledge, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And you have to learn how to manipulate both your lightsaber and the Force powers to help you win combat, because as the story progresses, the combat, especially with the lightsaber wielding or the staff wielding people, the dark troopers, the purged troopers, they'll kick your behind if you don't know what you're doing. like I said, you're going to die a lot. So, um, you know, it, you just got to practice. But it is so worth it. The payoffs when you finally do beat that first big boss, or that that creature that's been kicking your butt for the last 5 minutes. When you finally do beat them, and you know you have that moment where you're like, yes, that's the last time. Then there's such a payoff. It's such a payoff. You feel so accomplished for having done it, um, and it just makes you want to keep going. Um, so we talked about the force powers a little bit. We talked about, oh, by the way, the force powers, the skill tree. You can upgrade lightsaber skills. Um, you get different combos. You get different force enhanced abilities with your lightsaber, like lightsaber throw returns. Um, the grab and stab, I like to call it. I don't know what they call it, but that's in there. You finally get double jump, which is a necessary evil in this game, especially in certain planets and certain missions. You get all these force powers, but you can upgrade your lightsaber combat as you go. You get different combos. You get different abilities with it that assist you with all this crazy stuff. So the skill tree, I think, is well thought out. It's tied to the story pretty well. Because again, you're trying to reopen yourself, reconnect with the Force, and I think they kind of wove it in there in a good way. Like I said, there are a few times I'm like, really, you can't seriously let me have this now, but that's okay. Um, One other thing, real quick, since I'm looking at it on the screen, I'll go ahead and tell you guys. One of the coolest things about this game is the amount of customization that you are allowed to have. Now, again, this is a very early build of the game for me, I think. Or rather, yeah, I think this was a very early build of the game lightsaber for me. As you progress, you can open different crates with BD1, and you can get things like paint jobs for your ship. You can get different hilts and emitters and sleeves and colors and metals and stuff like that for your lightsaber. So the amount of customization is insane. By the time I got finished with the game, my son looked at my lightsaber and said, "Ooh," because he's playing a game on the internet with some friends that has like a Star Wars mod or something, and you can carry around a lightsaber. And he's like, "I wish my lightsaber looked like that. That's really cool." So, it's just an amazing amount of customization, but you have to go exploring in planets. That's one thing I like about the planet. There's 4 main planets on this game that you can explore at any given time. The first one that opens to you is Bogano, and then after that, different planets open up to you. The second one that opens up to you to explore, I don't recommend that you try to tackle any missions because you can't really. Again, because of story progression, but you can explore Dathomir and the different planets that are available to you. But be aware that each planet that you go to, again, the skill level and the difficulty level spikes. Okay, so if you go to a planet and you realize that it's way, 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 way too hard for you, maybe progress the story a little bit so that you can get a different ability or different things to try to help you with that particular planet. Go back and explore the planet as much as you can, and then it basically forces you to explore and to experiment with your lightsaber, with your skills, and going back and looking at the planets. The only thing that I don't like is all the amount of backtracking that you have to do, because these planets don't just have like one simple level. They're massive. Okay, you may start out on a section of a map and you might think, okay, well, I've got this map all figured out. I've explored all the little areas. I've explored all this little stuff, and I'm good. But then the story progresses, and you go back to that planet for something, and then you got a whole nother map, and it's just huge. It's amazing. My favorite level on this game to this point has been Kashyyyk, because it's just gorgeous to look at. It's gorgeous to look at the enemies that you fight, the environment in itself, the way you explore that planet is just amazing to me. I find it amazing, and it's a lot of fun. Um, so again, the customization, especially for your lightsaber, is amazing. Uh, I don't particularly care for the ponchos. Matter of fact, as you can see in a lot of my gameplay, I know I've done a lot of cutscenes here, little bits and pieces of cutscenes, because I'm trying not to spoil the story. But the paint job you see there is a paint job that I got, that I customized the ship myself. And then, of course, the outfit that Cal's wearing right now on screen is one that I decided to go with because I really didn't care for the ponchos. The ponchos didn't appeal to me. I didn't really care if I was wearing them or not, so I just didn't worry about it. But if you're into that, there are so many different variations of ponchos, so many different color schemes. You can get the indoor color scheme. You can get all kinds of color schemes. So if you're into that kind of stuff, that's cool. Um, let's see. We talked about the Force. We talked about the lightsabers. We talked about the combat. We talked about the graphics. We talked about the voice acting. Oh my goodness. But again, without getting into a whole lot of spoilers here, um, the story. I guess I can touch on that a little bit. I guess. Okay, guys. Well, I'll talk about the story for a second. I don't want to spoil too much. Matter of fact, I'm not going to spoil as much as possible for those of you who are getting around Christmas, but I'll talk about it for a few minutes. The craziest thing about the story is, okay, so you're Cal Kestis, you're on the planet that we saw at the beginning of the game. You've been hiding out for 6 years. Something bad happens. Then the Inquisitors come after you. Well, because you showed yourself in the Force and all that stuff. So you spend the entire game trying to reconnect with the Force, trying to get in touch with the Force again, and you're running away from the Inquisitors basically the entire game. Um, Along the way, you meet Greasy and Seer and, other people. Some will help you, some will kill you, or try to kill you. Some will try to turn you to the dark side, which you can't have a story without that. But you also help different people like Saul Guerrera, and you help different people with their problems, and the Wookiees and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. But again, I'm trying not to spoil it because seriously, the story is the star of the show, and it's very, very dark. It's very, very oppressive because this is a time of war, and it's supposed to be oppressive. But I don't want to spoil it. But it is definitely one of the best stories I have ever played in a Star Wars game. Aside from maybe the Jedi Academy game and the Star Wars Jedi Knight and stuff like that. As far as story goes, though, this is a pretty good story. I have to give the writers some credit here. It's a pretty good story. I think they did a good job. Something else I think that you guys need to know about the story is that it will take you roughly about 20 plus hours, depending on your skill level, maybe even longer. So, yeah. Just be prepared for a long, drawn-out story, but at the same time, it doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like there's filler. It just is a good story. So there you go. Let's talk about something else. Exploration in this game. Exploration is required in this game, believe it or not. Even if you visited a planet once or twice, you still might have places where you can't go or whatever because of different progression and different abilities that you don't have. I do recommend that you explore Dathomir early. I'll go ahead and give you this one kind of sort of spoiler if you haven't played the game yet. If you explore Dathomir early, when it's given to you as soon as you get it, after you beat or go to Bogano, you get the double-bladed lightsaber on Dathomir very early, but you have to explore. Be aware, though, that the difficulty level on each planet spikes, like I said earlier, so you might do a lot of more running away and a lot of dying, but make sure that you explore every nook and cranny that you can very early, so that you get the double-bladed lightsaber, because it does occasionally help you with certain enemies throughout the game. And if the bigger advantage you have early game, the better, I think. That's my opinion, but you can do what you like. Also, and again, I know I talk about things I don't like, or we're going to talk about things we don't like. But I don't like the amount of backtracking that you do have to do. A lot of times you have to leave a planet because you don't have a certain ability yet. You can't go on with certain planets because the story is not tied to that planet yet. So what I think they should have done is maybe not given it to you that early. Certain planets that early, but then again, there's a lot of exploring to do. There's a lot of secrets to find. There's a lot of different things as far as lore goes that you can find. So I know why they did it. It's just disappointing that they didn't, that you don't, that you can't kind of do it on your own. That you can't do it on your own and find it on your own and somehow tie the story back in. But then again, that would have been an open world game, and that's kind of not how this works. So I don't know. That's one of the biggest gripes that I have, I think, about this game. Is the amount of backtracking that you have to do. And you visit the same planet a couple of times, so you do have time to pick up things that you missed before and all that kind of stuff. But usually when I go to a planet, I like to explore as much as I can, open up the map as much as I can, and then, go on with the story. But that's just a personal gripe for me. So, I didn't want to spoil the story for you guys, so I was trying to avoid all of that. But definitely go to DATHOMIR as soon as you get it, so you can find the double-bladed lightsaber, so you can have all that stuff. And open those crates, man, because each individual piece that you get. Something that I didn't mention in the sound section is the emitters make your lightsabers sound different. So each emitter makes your lightsaber sound, ignition sound especially, sound a little different than the previous one. So I just thought I'd point that out too. It's pretty cool. Again, that's why I say the sound design is amazing, because there's so much thought put into the different things that you are able to do. So there's that too. But other than that, guys, man, this is a great game. You guys need to play this game, and I don't even want to bother with talking about it anymore. You just need to play the game. If I were to give it a score, I'd definitely give it probably a 9, because for me, it just hit all the right notes, rather it be emotional or just awesome story or whatever. But I'm a big fan of the franchise. But even if you're not a big fan of the franchise, I think you'll like this game, if nothing else, for the combat, for the emotional story that they do tell, and how dark this story is, because it is very, very dark. Very dark. Anyway, guys, hope you have a great day. I'm going to leave you guys with just a little bit of the game, so you guys can hear it, so you guys can see it, and maybe even some lightsaber combat. Hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to go enjoy my anniversary with my wife tonight, so we'll see you guys on Monday with a new video. Don't forget to favorite, subscribe, like, comment, whatever it is you like to do. You know where the buttons are. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Shall not hit me! You're too slow for me! Only cowards run. I hardly felt that.